On this point of masculinity, just further upstream a little bit, we talked about men approaching women. Now, I have to present the counter narrative to this because I don't think most men understand what it is to be a beautiful woman and what they go through on a daily basis. This ITV made a piece, I think 7 days ago. I saw it on X or Twitter, which showed what it's like to be a beautiful woman walking down the street.
Yeah.
This was only 7 days ago. There's been a variety of different videos like this, but I'll just play it for you so you can see.
What's going on here?
I'm filming undercover alone in Cardiff, where police recently announced a decrease in violence against women. Within seconds, a group of men approached me.
Play tennis? Yeah.
This guy didn't respect my personal space.
I don't mean to be rude or anything, but I saw you. I had to say hello. You look nice.
And that's kind of what my brand.
That's fine.
The guy in the black t-shirt sees me up ahead and speeds up to get next to me. And like many others, he overstays his welcome.
I think I'll be okay.
20 people approach me in just 2 hours.
Now, I don't think men realise that's the nature of what a woman goes through. So in the context of this conversation about, we do have to be on the front foot if we are going to find a mate, when you understand that that's what that beautiful woman that you're thinking about going up to has already gone through, it does change your,
I got you, but I've got a ready deployed answer for that. Life is about modulation, right? Saying the right thing in the right way at the right time, right? I'm sort of paraphrasing a quote of Aristotle, which in the happiness book, I have a whole chapter that is going to address your beautiful woman story. So I talk about the inverted U. Does that ring a bell? Do you know what that is? The inverted U?
I can imagine it on a graph.
On a graph, but not this way.
The other way, like a hill.
Right.
Yeah.
So the inverted U is basically the mathematical representation of something that certainly the ancient Greeks taught us long ago, but they weren't the only ones to say this. Everything in moderation, right? So Aristotle, in his golden mean argument, said, look, if you have, let's say, a soldier who's very cowardly, meek, lacking courage, that's not good. If you have a soldier who is so bold, rash, reckless in his risk-taking, that's not good either. So too little is not good, too much is not good, and the sweet spot is in the middle. So in the happiness book, I have an entire chapter whereby I argue that everything in life, the number one universal rule of optimal flourishing is to find the sweet spot, irrespective of any context that you're talking about. And then I demonstrate it through a bewildering number of examples at the neuronal level, at the individual level, at the societal level. Okay. So now let's apply that principle to here, right? Those guys are at the other end of the curve, right? Knowing when to act in the right way at the right time in the right measure. That they're not doing that, because the likelihood of that beautiful girl, when you come up and act like a rather harassing buffoon in that context, of her saying, you know what, I'm sold. Let's have massive sex behind that tree right now, right? Therefore, we know that statistically speaking, that approach is never going to work. It's done for no other purpose than to harass. Whereas when I'm at a party where we are supposed to be mingling, and I come up to you and I say, forgive me, I hope you don't mind, I just want to say, gorgeous dress. Does that seem like what I just said is similar to how they're acting? So life is about modulation. And those guys are certainly not modulated.
Obviously, there's a bunch of things that are clearly violations there of everything you've just said about the right place, the right time. They look drunk. It's very late. She's alone. So she's in a position of vulnerability in many respects. So rolling up to her in such a way is... But from the male perspective, you said the probability of getting a good outcome there is so low. But from the male perspective there, they're probably thinking, listen, if the probability is 0.0001...
Why not?
I'll take it. They're probably thinking that.
Well, by the way, yeah, perhaps, but if you were an empathetic person, you'd say the fact that she may feel threatened is enough reason
not to
do it.
Yeah.
Therefore, to me, they're all assholes.
I agree. And I at the heart of this, though, is this idea of self-awareness.
Exactly.
Because the men that rolled up there, they might in their own heads think they have a chance. They might like have a distorted view of their probability. I mean, one of them rolled up and said, hey, do you want some tennis lessons? I'm a tennis coach. And from what I saw in the video, he was a good 30, 40 years older than her.
Yeah.
And in his head, he must have thought that the effort he's exerting there is worth the probability that he's assumed, because there's just like no self-awareness. And I think at the heart of this is like, how do you build that self-awareness to know?
Oh, I love that you're asking this, because one of the things that frustrates me the most in social interactions is so I'm not a beautiful woman, so I don't get that violation, but I get a million other violations for all sorts of reasons. One of which is that people do recognize me a lot and they do come up. So they don't do it because they're trying to get me behind the bushes, but then they'll stop me and lecture for the next 25 minutes about whatever idea they're having in their head. Now, I'm polite. I'm thankful that people appreciate my work and will come up, but I didn't sign up while I'm walking with my children and wife for you to lecture me for 25 minutes uninterrupted without me saying a word. If you come up and say, oh, I read The Perfect Mind, professor, loved it. Do you mind if I take a picture with you? I'm always gracious. So all of those social faux pas, almost all of them could be linked to what you said, which is a complete lack of self-awareness, which, let's break it down even more. There is a concept in psychology called theory of mind. Are you familiar with it?
No.
Theory of mind is a ability that you must have in order to have meaningful social interaction. What does theory of mind mean? When I'm chatting with you, I have to be able to put myself in your mind. So for example, if I'm talking to an audience that knows nothing about evolutionary psychology, I might alter the specific words I use because I have theory of mind that makes me say they don't know what domain-specific computational systems would be. If I use those words, I just lost. Not because they're dumb, but because they don't know that jargon. So I already exhibited a good communicator skill, which is I put myself in the theory of mind of my audience and I modulate my message depending on who I'm speaking to. Well, autistic children, by the way, fail on theory of mind. So one of the ways that you are able to diagnose, because autism, you can't give a blood test that shows, oh, there's a marker of autism. So the way that you typically diagnose autism early is through various tasks that they go through. So there is a task for children that you suspect might be autistic where they will fail on such a test, which makes sense intuitively because you know that autistic children don't have very good social skills, are emotionally withdrawn, don't read cues well. So for example, if I'm sitting with you for 25 minutes while you lecture me about why Kamala Harris is a great president, I didn't sign up for that. You want to shake my hand? That's great. Now you can tell if you are self-aware that I'm getting impatient. You should be able to tell that my children are starting to shuffle uncomfortably because they're getting impatient, but you're just as oblivious as those assholes. So many of social interactions are because of people's lack of self-awareness. And I am shocked by the extent to which most people lack self-awareness. So it's not that 95% of the people that I meet are unbelievably socially gracious and it's only the 5% degenerates that are bad. It's the opposite.
But then there's an explanation for that.
Okay, go.
Because the ones that did have the self-awareness never came up.
Right. Okay. So
they
therefore,
looked at you
I'm only exposed to the bad instances.
Yeah. So the ones that have the self-awareness and the theory of mind saw you walk past with your family and went, he's with his family, love his work, but I'm not going to roll upon him with his family.
You're exactly right. By the way, that's the exact same mechanism that explains something called the overconfidence bias, which is a cognitive bias, whereby we overestimate something in an So for example, if you ask most professors, so do you think that your teaching ability, is it below average, average, or above average? 90% of professors say above average. Well, statistically, that can be. Well, why does that happen? It's exactly for what you said. The students who thought I was great took the time to come up to me and say, Professor, loved the course. The ones who thought I was an asshole didn't come up to me. So what did my brain code? Only the great ones, and therefore I must be great.
what if the way you present yourself isn't appealing to the world? And again, this brings us back to this idea of like being a beta male. And when you say beta male, what we're saying there, what is the definition of beta male?
Yes, it's used colloquially. Beta male would be none of the markers that exhibit the types of qualities that women would find attractive you possess. So it could be social dominance. It could be physical dominance. It could be high status. It could be assertiveness. It could be ambition. It could be, one of the reasons why women say, I'm very attracted to a funny man, a funny guy. What they're effectively saying is, I want an intelligent man, because it's very, very unlikely that you could be a very funny satirist if you're not intelligent. Dave Chappelle is probably smarter than a lot of my colleagues, but they have a lot of degrees. But he wouldn't be able to stand up in front of an audience, keep their attention for an hour and a half on really powerful social commentary where they pay $150 to come if he weren't incredibly intelligent, right? So beta and alpha doesn't just mean tall and dominant and I have a club and I beat you with it. It means, do you exude the types of cues that on average in the mating market, people would say, God damn, that's an attractive guy. Whatever that means. That's how I define it.
So if you had to give advice then to men and women who were intent on being higher value and higher status, what would that advice be and how would it differ?
Some of the advice will be exactly the same for both sexes, but some of the advice would be sex specific in recognition that not all of the mating attributes are equally desired by the opposite sex, right?
Yeah.
So for example, no man has ever uttered the following words: Linda, you have a gorgeous body. I'm unbelievably sexually drawn to you, but you're not exhibiting the type of alacrity to improve your GPA score. And your lack of assertiveness in your studies suggests that I'm not going to have sex with you tonight. No man has ever uttered those words. But a lot of women meet a super hot guy at a club. He opens his mouth and what comes out is retarded imbecility. And suddenly the sex opportunity has just shut down. So why am I saying all this? There are some traits that if men were to work on, that's going to bring them more bang for the buck than if women worked on. Other ones, both. So for example, kindness and intelligence are universal traits equally desired by both men and women. So that's true for both men and women across cultures. But social status is preferred by women and men in every known culture. Physical beauty and youth is preferred by men over women in every culture. So some traits, the advice would be the same. Some traits, it'll be sex specific.
I wonder, because I'm trying to figure out how to give advice to that bottom 50% of men that are basically having no sex,
right?
Which I'm told about over and over again, that are at risk of becoming incels or playing video games in their room, that are turning to pornography as a medicine, I guess, and an antidote to their lives. What kind of advice would you offer to those sort of disillusioned men?
Is that guy also 90 pounds overweight and pear-shaped?
Probably not in shape.
Okay. So, you know what? Hit the treadmill. Looks matter. They don't matter to women as much as they do to men, but you know, my wife often jokes with me. I don't know if you've ever seen this on the internet. I will often post, you know, in a joking manner, a photo of me from 1985 in Southern California, in San Diego, where I'm in my soccer physique days, where I have the 8-pack and the V and the whole thing, right? And my wife would joke with me. She said, how come I never got that version of Gad, right? Now, that doesn't mean she obviously stayed with me when I was, 86 pounds heavier. So it's not the only thing, but boy, is it better to have this 6 or 8-pack than not have it. So my height, I can't change, right? So I can't tell those guys that are potentially going to be incels, please try to grow 4 inches, right? But again, crack a book. So for example, even with my own children, right? You would think having the father that they have, they're born, they come out of the womb and they're reading. You know how hard it is for me to get them to get away from this damn thing?
iPads.
right? It's one of the biggest frustrations I have as a parent. And as I said earlier, they're very graceful. They're very poised, probably compared to other children. They're a lot more knowledgeable, but it's not a reflex for them to say, of all things that I could do right now, I want to go to a room and read. Whereas it is a reflex that I still have today with complete, full dedication. So read more, learn how to speak better. Again, mating is a compensatory process. There are things that I can't change about me. I can't change my height. I can't change the symmetry or lack thereof in my face. But if I'm thinner, all other things equal, I'm probably going to be better. So it's never a lost cause. Wherever I am in my mating desirability score, there are always effective intervention strategies that could improve my score. So I'm currently at a 42. I think that if I do strategies A, B, C, I could probably get up to 60. And 60 is going to open me up to a lot more desirable women than when I was 42.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.